Okay, so right here in red, we have the primary motor cortex, and this is responsible for planning and executing movement. Then right here in pink, we have the premotor cortex. It's anterior to the primary motor cortex, and this is responsible for more complicated movements. Then we have the prefrontal cortex right here in this burnt orange, if you will. This is anterior to the premotor cortex, and it's where a lot of your higher cognitive functions are located, like personality, learning, and some memory functions. Then right here in blue, we have the primary somatosensory cortex. It's posterior to the central gyrus, which is right in the middle. And it's responsible for receiving sensory information from the peripheral nervous system. And this is information from muscles, skin, and joints. And the information first arrives here. Then right here in this tannish, brownish color, we have the somatosensory association cortex. This is posterior to the primary somatosensory cortex. And after information has arrived in the primary somatosensory cortex and is processed, it goes here for more integration and to make the decision about what to do next. So this is the motor response. And then we have in black, which was supposed to be navy blue, but turned out to be black, we have the primary visual cortex, which is the most posterior, and it's the simple parts of sight. Then purple right here, we have the visual association area. This area does particular specializations of our ability to see, like color, movement, or depth. Then right here in this army green, we have the primary auditory cortex, which is located in the superior temporal lobe, and is the first to receive auditory stimuli. Then right here in this fuchsia color, we have the auditory association area, and it's adjacent from the primary auditory cortex, as you can see. And the stimuli from the primary auditory cortex is sent here. Then we have right here in teal is the Wernicke's area, and this is responsible for speech, comprehension, and if it's affected, an individual can't understand what someone is saying to them. And then right here in cranberry, we have the Broca's area, and this area is responsible for producing speech or ability to make and generate words with your mouth, and ability to put those words together as sentences. And then here we have the cerebellum, this right here. This part of the brain coordinates movement, and it's responsible for complex activities like learning to play a new instrument, a new dance routine, or like woodworking. Then in our brain stem, we have the most inferior portion, which is the medulla oblongata. This contains tracts of white matter involved in movement and sensation, and it also regulates many autonomic functions. Then right here, we have the pons. This is superior to the medulla oblongata. and this regulates breathing and the sleep/wake cycle. Then right here, we have the midbrain. This is superior to the pons, and this processes the routes, visual and auditory stimuli to the thalamus, and it also carries motor fibers from the cerebral cortex, monitors movement with the basal nuclei, and mediates reflexes. Then in the cerebral hemisphere, we have the gyri, which is these wrinkles or folds that make up the brain all throughout. And then we have the sulci, which is the space or valleys on either side of the gyri throughout the brain. Then we have the longitudinal fissure right here, which divides the left and right hemisphere, similar to sulci, like the sulci, but it's way bigger, obviously. Then we have the lateral fissure right here. This divides the left and right hemisphere. I'm sorry, the temporal lobe. Sorry, this divides the temporal lobe from the frontal and parietal lobes. Then we have the central sulcus right here. This separates the frontal lobe from the parietal lobe. Then we have it's easier to see on here. We have the precentral gyrus, which is located anterior to the central sulcus, and this contains the primary motor cortex that I talked about earlier. Then we have the postcentral gyrus, which is located posterior to the central sulcus, which is honestly easier to see here, the central sulcus right there. And this contains the primary somatosensory cortex, which I also talked about earlier. Then we have the frontal lobe right here, which goes up until the central sulcus. And then we have the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe, and the temporal lobe. The frontal lobe is the anteriormost lobe, and it's involved in the planning, guidance, coordination, and execution of movement. The parietal lobe is posterior to the frontal lobe, and it's responsible for processing and integrating sensory information. The occipital lobe is the posterior lobe, and it processes all information relating to vision. And then lastly, we have the temporal lobe, which is on the lateral surface of the hemisphere, and it performs functions related to hearing, language, memory, and emotions.